Hey, what is up, guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're covering a few different cards from all over the market. Now, a couple of these cards are catching people's attention because they are right on the cusp of being meta relevant. They might not be there yet, but they definitely have the potential to in a format or two if the ban list shapes up correctly. But we're also going to take a look at a couple of cards that I feel are underpriced or undervalued at the moment and analyze factors that could drive their prices up in the near future. Let's get started. So kicking things off with one of the main cards that I feel like everyone was talking about yesterday, we have Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. This card is a secret rare out of Rise of the Duelist, currently sitting up at $40 a piece. I think that at its peak yesterday, it was at around $55 to $60. It has since then cooled off. Either way, this is way up from the $10 to $20 range that this card has historically been sitting at for most of its lifespan. Now, there are a couple of potential applications for this card within the meta. Most notably, I believe that this card is seeing some play in Pure Dragoonides, as it helps you to revive Gaydirk from the graveyard when you destroy this card while it's placed in the Pendulum Zone. Also, I believe that people are talking about playing it in Dragon Link as well, though I haven't seen any lists running it myself, as you can use this card to search for Amorphage Lechery or Amorphage Goliath to lock your opponent out of certain aspects of the game, so you're building on some boards that are already pretty hard to break. Now, moving forward, we do want to keep in mind that this card is due to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatins, likely in a rarity that's lower than Secret Rare, which should make this card much more affordable. I would expect this card's price to cool down over the next couple of days pretty quickly to around the $30 mark, and then fall steadily in price as we get closer to the release of the 2021 Megatins later this year. So if you can capitalize on the price spike and sell this card for as much value as possible now, I would definitely try to do so. Next up is a card that I think I briefly mentioned in the Market Watch last week. We have Doom King Balerdrock. So right now, zombies are actually a pretty scary deck to have to play against, with Zombie World making cards like Super Poly and Rivalry of Warlords really strong. Now, it just so happens that a few different key YouTubers in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, Sam from Team Samurai X1 and Yassine, both featured anti-meta zombie decks on their respective channels. I believe that was last week. And also we saw Isaiah Perez take third place at the PPG event from over the weekend, so the deck is actually getting some decent results as well. As we mentioned before, pieces of the zombie structure deck are actually getting somewhat expensive because even though you could basically get the entire core in just 3 sealed structure decks, Zombie Horde is actually a structure deck that came out a full 2.5 years ago, so it's basically impossible to find them sealed on the market still. People are being forced to buy singles from off of the market, and with how zombies are such an easy to play popular archetype, we're seeing a lot of people turn to them, and the prices of the singles are shooting up as a result. In fact, Balerdrock, the cover card, is all the way up at $11 to $12 a piece, which is more than the original price of the entire sealed deck. Hopefully this is a core that you picked up and have held onto since the beginning, especially if you're wanting to play this strategy. If not, you'll either have to suck it up and buy the core at these higher prices, or wait and hope for some of these reprints. The unfortunate thing is that because there are several cards from the structure deck that all function together and need to be reprinted, we probably won't see this take up multiple OTS spots in one of the upcoming OTS tournament packs, so you might have to wait until we see some zombie support or a new zombie archetype in an upcoming side set to see all of the relevant zombie cards be reprinted. So this one is pretty random, but we're taking a look at 2 cards here, number 9 Dyson Sphere and number C9 Chaos Dyson Sphere. So at first I had no idea why these cards jumped, it just seemed really random, kinda out of nowhere. Apparently though, there is a Virtual World FTK that runs 1 copy of each of these cards, and it looks kind of interesting. The only difference from this build and the regular Virtual World build, I think, is that you run 1 copy of the Rank Up Magic in the main deck, and then you play these 2 cards in the extra deck. I believe that mcole40 actually did a combo video on his channel. You basically use Gossip Shadow to load a ton of materials underneath Chaos Dyson Sphere and burn your opponent for a ton of damage. Kinda cool, but you have to open perfectly for it, as well as burn every single one of your resources in your hand, so probably not something you're gonna want to gamble on at a major event. Anyways, each of these cards only has 1 printing available, which is a part of why these cards have spiked in price so significantly. We have number 9, which was only available back in Abyss Rising, with the ultra rares at $20 a piece and the ultimate rares at $30s a piece. And then of course we have number C9, which was only available in the premium gold set, up at $25 each. Now of course I don't think that these are going to be useful in the meta anytime soon, but the fact that they are number monsters with limited printings does tell us that they're somewhat collectible and maybe a bit slower to fall back down in price. Even then, this is definitely not something you should be holding on to. I would look to offload these cards at whatever price you can, even if you have to do so at a bit of a discounted price, because these prices aren't going to stay this high for very long. So this is a card that we've talked about once before, I believe, but didn't actually know that it continued to trend upwards in price from there. We have Machina Metal Cruncher. I believe that we first looked at this card back when Machina Infinitrack, that Earth Machine deck, was first being hyped up, where Metal Cruncher is used as a key starter card to kick off your turn. I believe that back then, this was only a $5 to $7 card, and we thought that was kind of crazy already. But then again, the deck hadn't really done anything, and it was just kind of hyped up out of nowhere after seeing some play in some online tournaments. Now, however, I think that a lot more people seem to be pretty big on this deck, and it's totally possible that with the right ban list, this deck could be meta relevant in a format or two. I don't believe I've seen the deck actually top or do anything like that recently, but it definitely does have a lot of potential. Anyways, the card is now up at a ridiculous $15 a piece, and it's actually moving at that price, which should tell us something about just what people think about the deck and what their expectations are for it moving forward. We do want to keep in mind that this is another card that's due to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatins, but if we see a surge in play from this card and the Earth Infinitrack Machina deck before then, expect it to potentially go higher to $20 to $25 before it calms back down, because it does have just the one printing available. I would expect that realistically, this card maintains its current price point for the next little while, so be okay with keeping a set for yourself to play with if you want to look at running the strategy in your remote duel tournaments, but definitely consider offloading your extras. Okay, next up, I actually want to talk about a card that has fallen in price recently, though I don't really understand why. Drytron Nova is one of the few good cards to come out of Genesis Impact, and it's a staple for the Drytron deck at 3. It shot up in price when people first realized that the deck was actually good, peaking at $45 to $50 each. However, obviously with the banning of Union Carrier and limiting of Benton, the deck is less powerful and less potent now, though it does still have some interesting plays and sees the occasional top now and then, thanks to the Megalith cards mostly. Despite this, however, we've actually seen Drytron Nova come way down in price. It was $30 a couple of weeks ago, and it's actually now down even further, and you can grab them for $25 a piece on TCG Player. The reason that this is confusing to me is that we have two really important cards for Drytrons coming in Lightning Overdrive in the forms of Fafnir, which is the new rank 1 Drytron Xyz, and Diviner of the Heralds. Between these two cards, I believe that they're actually a really big boost to the Drytron strategy, and given that we're already seeing tops from the deck without these cards, I am expecting Drytrons to re-emerge as a solid tier 1.5 strategy, with the potential to be tier 1 if Dragon Link or Shadal's were to get hit on an upcoming ban list. If you're looking to play Drytrons when Lightning Overdrive does drop, make sure that you pick up your copies of Drytron Nova now before they spike, because with the support that they have coming, they are bound to jump back up in price within the next couple of months. Alright, so this is another card that I feel like is a bit undervalued, though it's already catching a little bit of attention. Scrap Wyvern, I feel like, was a really obvious buy back when this card was only $1. It's now currently up at $3 a piece. The reason for this is that we have Scrap Raptor coming in Lightning Overdrive, which is a really awesome card for the strategy that enables some pretty cool one-card combos, very similarly to how Armageddon Knight and Draconet have done for different decks in the past. Anyways, I don't know exactly just how relevant or how much meta usage the Scrap package will actually see, just because I feel like everything that I've seen from it so far feels like it's been a little bit niche, not really any meta relevant combos. However, Scrap Wyvern will definitely be a card to keep an eye on, as it only has the one super rare printing, but it was actually a promo from the Chaos Impact Special Edition. As such, it's kind of an annoying card to find because you had to go buy a special ed just for a chance at this card, and Chaos Impact wasn't really that great of a set overall. That being said, I could definitely see this card hitting the $5 mark if the Scrap engine does see some play, maybe even a little bit higher than that if it becomes some part of a meta deck or combo. I would definitely dig this card out of your bulk if you happen to have it in there for whatever reason, or consider picking up a few extra copies if you can snag them for $1 or $2, because assuming that this card doesn't get some sort of unusual reprint, it certainly does have a lot of potential to climb up in terms of price. Next up is a card I want to touch on really briefly here because it kind of caught me off guard when I saw it. We have Raigeki. So we're at the point where the more affordable versions of Raigeki are slowly starting to creep up in terms of price. So I feel like a lot of people kind of wrote off Raigeki as being just a card that everyone has now because it had that reprint in the Megatins as a secret rare, and then it was a super rare in the Charmer structure deck, and we still had the battle pack rare versions running around. In fact, I remember people selling me their Megatin versions of this card for 25 to 50 cents a piece when it first came out. Now, however, we're actually seeing the cheap versions of Raigeki slowly starting to climb in price, where the secret rares are $3 each and the supers are $2 a piece. This is despite Raigeki still being limited to 1 and Lightning Storm still being a card that's running around in the format that serves a very similar function. However, I do think that people are just viewing this as a staple type of card, despite it not seeing very much play, kind of similarly to Harpy's Feather Duster. So even though it's not seeing play right now, it just might in the future, and it's such a simple blowout type of card that everyone is going to want to play it when it's actually a relevant threat. I don't know if this is going to get another reprint and then become $1 again, or maybe it's not going to get a reprint and continue to trend upwards at this pace until the secrets hit $5 a piece each or something like that. But definitely, this is a card that you want to keep an eye on moving forward. It's a card that's probably really easy to overlook, and you don't want to offload this card too cheaply when you're probably sitting on several copies. Alright, the final card I'm talking about here is definitely a random one. It is Divine Punishment. Specifically, we're looking at the super rare version from one of the OTS tournament packs, which is currently up at the $2 mark, which is way higher than the 25 to 50 cents that it was at before. So with all of the hype for the Agent structure deck we're getting in the OCG later this year, Divine Punishment could potentially be a useful card in the strategy, basically being a cost-free spell, trap, or monster effect negation if you have Sanctuary in the sky on the field. Therefore, the use of this card definitely depends on whether or not we get a redone version of Sanctuary in the sky. However, we also have to keep in mind that right now, I don't believe that this card is searchable, so maybe it's not the most consistent counter trap for the deck to pull off. I don't know for sure if this card is going to be good. I don't think that anyone does at this point, but if the redone version of Sanctuary is good, and maybe if we have a way to search for a card that just mentions Sanctuary in the sky in its card text somewhere, we might have something of a hidden gem here. This isn't something that I would go out and invest in a ton of copies of just because it's already a little bit inflated at a couple of bucks, and that's going to add up really quickly. However, I do think that if you can snag copies of this card for 50 cents to $1 still, especially in trades, then that's low enough of a price point for you guys to be entering at, just in case this card ends up being the only holo version of a relevant card to the strategy. Okay guys, that is it for today's video. I was gonna do a single episode where I talked about different cards to invest in. I think I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, but what I'm finding instead is that I prefer to sprinkle them into market watches here and there, just to keep you guys on your toes. There are always going to be cards that you can grab early to move for more later on down the line. And there's also cards that you should be prioritizing selling when they are overinflated, and it's important to know which is which when you're buying, selling, and trading cards. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards that we talked about today, and also let me know what else is trending on the market so I can cover it in a future episode to keep all of you guys as informed as possible. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.